I'm on the line, Karina.
Thank you, David.
Am I the only one?
Oh, no, we've got several folks here. As far as
We will call this meeting of the Mojave Spaceport Board of Directors to order. And we'll start with roll call. Mr. Allred.
Here.
Mr. Valentine. Mr. Deaver.
Here.
Mr. Parker.
Here.
And the chair is here. Let the record show that all in attendance, Mr. Valentine is absent. We move on to approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved by Parker.
Second motion to approve by Mr. Parker. Second by
Allred.
I'll
second.
Allred.
Allred.
Right. Okay, we got it. Roll call vote then to approve. Mr. Allred.
Yes.
Mr. Deaver.
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
Chair votes yes.
To unmute yourself, press the
Four
star
votes
key
in
twice.
favor, one absent. It passes. Are there any community announcements? Okay, being no community announcements, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Allred.
Motion to second. Deaver.
Second by Mr. Deaver. Second by Mr. Deaver. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda?
Yes, there is. From Brandon Walton, Deputy Fire Chief of Mojave Air and Spaceport.
Okay. Go ahead.
Brandon, we're actually on the consent agenda right now, which is simply the meeting minutes from last meeting and the check register.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
No problem.
That's okay. Is there any other public comment on the consent agenda? If not, roll call vote. Mr. Allred.
Yes.
Mr. Deaver.
Aye.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Did Mr. Valentine get on the line? Okay. Vote passes 4-all. Motion is approved. We move to item 4, action items. If it's okay with you, Karina, I'm going to do the resolution first.
Okay, sure. That'd be great.
I'm here,
Yeah,
Dave.
that was Mr. Hi, Jim. We're going to do the resolution first, just so Mr. Peterson doesn't have to wait forever. 1 second. The board would like to recognize the accomplishments and efforts of Dr. Peterson, formerly a member of our board, president of the Test Pilot School, and his staff at the Test Pilot School, who he so generously includes in this acknowledgement. Therefore, a resolution of the Board of Directors of Mojave Air and Spaceport congratulating Dr. Alan Peterson for receiving the Society of Experimental Test Pilots 2020 James H. Doolittle Award. Whereas Dr. Alan Peterson is the President and Chief Executive Officer of the National Test Pilot School, and whereas Dr. Peterson has been awarded the Society for Experimental Test Pilots SCTP 2020 James H. Doolittle Award, and whereas the Doolittle Award is given a living member of SCTP who achieved an accomplishment in the technical management or engineering aspect of aeronautical technology while a member of SCTP, and whereas the SCTP noted, quote, Dr. Peterson has envisioned and successfully directed initiatives leading NTPS to become the first test pilot school in the world to obtain full EASA certification, WSCUC collegiate accreditation, and ISO 9001-2015 certification, thereby positioning NTPS for a successful long-term future. Furthermore, Dr. Peterson has integrated outreach to both our technical and local communities into the daily fiber of the school. In short, Dr. Peterson's leadership and technical management skills have elevated NTPS to the point where it can be truly called, quote, the world's test pilot school, unquote. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Board of Directors of Mojave Air and Spaceport congratulate Dr. Peterson on receiving the SCTP 2020 Doolittle Award, along with his many other accomplishments with NTPS and as a test pilot. Be it further resolved that a certified copy of this resolution be presented to Dr. Peterson by the Secretary, along with an appropriate statement of the Board's heartfelt congratulations. passed, approved, and adopted the 6th day of October, 2020. If any members of the board wish to make a statement to Dr. Peterson congratulating him, now would be the time, after which the chair will entertain a motion to pass the resolution.
I'd be very happy. Excuse me. This is Bill Deaver, Director Deaver. I really want to congratulate Al. He's done a wonderful job. He's a good board member. The National Test Pilot School is pretty much unique in the world, and his actions have made it even more unique. So, good job, Al, and you really deserve this honor.
Yeah, thanks, Bill.
Now, this is Mr. Allred, Board Member Allred. I haven't met you yet, I don't think, but I congratulate you on your achievements at the test pilot.
All right, thank you.
This board member Parker, fantastic job, Al. Just keep up the good work and keep us in the spotlight. You're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you very much.
And Director Valentine, I'm very proud of Dr. Peterson and his accomplishments at the school, and I'm more than happy to make a motion to adopt the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Valentine. Al, just a personal word for me. Great job. It's been my pleasure to work with you and to know you, get to know you. You and your school over there are phenomenal, and I think you do a great job. And I think the Test Pilot School does a phenomenal job doing what it does very well, representing the Mojave Air Spaceport. And so, congratulations to you, congratulations to your staff, and thank you for a job well done. With that,
Thanks, David, and Jimmy. Thank you.
You're welcome. With that, I'll entertain a second. Mr. Valentine, motion to approve.
No, second.
Second by Mr. Allred. Are there any public comments? Being
David, I'll jump in.
Allred.
This is Karina. Just a real quick comment. Again, Al, congratulations. I'm absolutely thrilled, and this is very well deserved. It's unfortunate that it couldn't be presented in person, but I just wanted to let everyone know that assuming the symposium does take place next year, SATP's intention is to have a formal ceremony for Dr. Peterson at the next symposium.
Great.
I'll be.
All right. Who was that?
This is Director Valentine. I said I'll be there.
Okay. I'll be there too. Okay. With that, Mr. Allred, how do you vote?
Pardon me? Oh, for the resolution, hey.
Yeah, we're okay. Mr. Valentine.
Yes.
Mr. Deaver.
Aye.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
The chair votes yes. It is unanimous. Congratulations, Dr. Peterson, and thank you for joining us for this recognition. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Can I just take 2 minutes real quick?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I just wanted, in the newsletter I put out, I thanked, my team here at NTPS and for all the stuff they've done. But I also wanted to take just a second to thank the Mojave Air and Spaceport team. Karina and her team provide fantastic support to the school, and the school, our ability to do our mission is greatly enhanced because of our location here at the Mojave Air and Spaceport and the support that we receive from the team here at the Mojave Air and Spaceport, which also includes the board of directors. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. As I had said, it takes a team to win an award like this. You can't do something like this on your own, and the Mojave Air and Spaceport is the part of that team. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Al, thank you a lot, and you have a great day.
All right, you guys take care.
Bye-bye. Okay, with that item, we will go back. We will move to action item, is it 1 or A? I can't remember. A.
Yeah, action item A.
I got to find my... Yeah, go ahead. Staff report.
Your agenda. Okay, action item A is the aircraft rescue and firefighting services. So, John and I have been contemplating how to, manage the fire department going forward, what we need to do, and some things that we're taking into consideration. And for the past couple of years, we've experienced a lot of turnover in the fire department, and that's been a real challenge for us, getting new folks up to speed, getting new folks trained and ARFF certified has been a real challenge for us as well. And so what we're faced with today is we have a fire chief position that's been open for quite some time that we've really had some trouble recruiting for. And in the meantime, a lot of the responsibilities for the fire department have defaulted to John Himes, who's probably the first one to admit he's not, probably not the world expert in firefighting services for airports. And so what we really need is some additional assistance on our ARFF services. We don't have a requirement for ARFF. I just want to make sure the board is aware of that. As a general aviation airport, we don't have that requirement. However, it has become a great service that we provide to our customers, and our customers have become accustomed to having the fire support on site. So our preference is to keep that service available to the aviation community at the airport. But we do need some additional help. And the things that we need help with are things like reducing the turnover, keeping up to date on the changes to regulations and requirements, training, managing the NFPA relationship, especially when it comes to the new standards that are coming down the pike for spaceport management. And these are the types of things that we are more concerned with now than ever. So our options essentially before us today are to outsource to a private company, to try to keep maintaining this level that we've been operating at for 2 years now, or to engage Kern County. And the options that I presented in your board packet here, obviously the county's option is just cost prohibitive. So they're estimating about $1.7 million to come and take over the fire department, and that also includes their requirements as far as to have a new fire station with different capabilities as well. So I think that one, in my opinion, is off the table. It's just cost prohibitive. So it really boils down to continuing to maintain the status quo or to outsource to PRO-TEC. And John and I are both recommending that we outsource to PRO-TEC for a number of the reasons that I just mentioned. And what we get with that is, a professional organization that's constantly monitoring the requirements, the regulations, the NFPA certifications that are necessary, everything that goes with running a fire department properly, and take that responsibility essentially off of John's plate. John would still oversee the fire department, but largely, the professional services that are offered by outsourcing is something that we would get through a company like PRO-TEC. So my request of the board today is that that the board authorize me to finalize and execute the contract with PRO-TEC for our services. I'm happy to provide any additional background, but I think some folks want to chime in as well with some comments.
All right. Well, let's see if we have any public comment on this matter. Is there any public comment on this matter?
Yes, there is, sir. I'd like to speak on that comment on this actual outsourcing issue. For the board moment,
if you could state your name for the record.
Absolutely. My name is Brandon Welton, and I serve as the Deputy Fire Chief and current Acting Fire Chief of Mojave Air and Spaceport Fire Department. First off, I would like to say that PRO-TEC's proposal on face value is a positive step forward for this airport. It gives an example model that airport management staff agree with and recommend. I applaud Karina and John for taking a hard look at the fire department and what is best for the safety of our customers and employees that work here. But this report did not do the due diligence of comparing apples to apples. The current model of service for our services at MASS is very much outdated and not sustainable for excellent customer service. The proposed staffing model in the report is a positive step in the right direction. But this report fails to compare what it would cost for MASS to replicate this staffing model. It instead compares our inefficient and non-compliant model to a more appropriate and efficient model. So forth, going oranges to apples. Before a decision is made by this board, an apples-to-apples comparison of the same staffing model should be examined by this board to determine the cost efficiency of contracting versus reorganizing the current staff model to the same level proposed by PRO-TEC. There are distinct savings that MASS is able to enjoy when it comes to salary and staffing that are not legally afforded to private, for-profit fire brigade companies such as PRO-TEC under FLSA, the Fair Labor Standards Act. Enacted in 1938, The FLSA did not fully apply to state and local government until 1985. Since then, the FLSA has played a major role in determining whether firefighters are entitled to overtime, the hours that they must work before being eligible for overtime, the hours that are compensable, and the overtime rate. The statutory maximum for non-government firefighting employees is 40 hours in a 7-day work week. The FLSA allows a partial exemption for firefighters and law enforcement personnel, which is known as the 207K exemption. Qualifying firefighters are allowed to work up to 53 hours per week or up to 212 hours in a 28-day work period before overtime is required. This exemption only applies to government agencies such as Mojave and Spaceport, since we are a state special district. Fire protection personnel include firefighters, paramedics, emergency medical technicians, rescue workers, and ambulance personnel, or hazardous materials workers who, number one, are trained in fire suppression, number two, have the legal authority and responsibility to engage in fire suppression, three, are employed by a fire department or a municipality, county, district, or state, and four, are engaged in the prevention, control, and extinguishment of fires or response to emergency situations where life, property, or the environment are at risk. There is no limit on the amount of non-exempt work that an employee employed in the fire protection activities may perform, so long as the employee meets the criteria above. He or she is an employee employed in the fire protection activities, as defined in Section 3, Paragraph Y of the FLSA. PRO-TEC does not qualify for this overtime exemption, as the exemption is not extended to private companies. This results in the increase in cost for overtime for PRO-TEC, which is passed along to the consumer. These are facts, gentlemen. PRO-TEC is for-profit and in the business of making money, and they are very aware of the increased cost for them to provide the exact same level of service as government-based fire protection because of FLSA laws that govern the private industry. If a PRO-TEC firefighter works 5 10-hour days at $24 an hour, they must pay their employee 40 hours at $24 an hour and 10 additional hours at $36 an hour. If you look at the language of the proposal, PRO-TEC intends to cover this cost and revenue loss by the following clause on page 4 of their proposal. And I quote, it says overtime hourly rate. We are proposing an overtime hourly rate for the full-time staff of $42 per hour per person to be approved by the airport. This rate would be used solely for unanticipated and or exceptional events and only when part-time staffing is not available. For Mojave to follow the same model presented, the base salary figures would show that it is cheaper to replicate this model with internal employees based solely on salary without calculating in the MAS benefit package due to MAS being able to apply the FLSA exemption for overtime. If utilizing the same 3-person model, the fire chief would still be $80,000 salary for the 50-hour work week. As the position is exempt due to being management, no overtime would be allowed to the fire chief. A MAS firefighter at $24 an hour costs $62,400 annually for a 50-hour work week versus a PRO-TEC firefighter at $24 an hour costing $68,640 annually in base salary. That's a difference of $6,240 in base salary for firefighter. Additionally, MAS would still have 3 hours wiggle room per week to pay at straight time rate for a firefighter that is held over for an airport operation or has to come in early for an airport operation. If this happens with a PRO-TEC firefighter, it is at the minimum time and a half for each hour, but according to the clause on page 4, it actually says $42 an hour as charged to MAS. For 2 firefighters as proposed by PRO-TEC, that is a difference of $12,480 of base salary savings if MAS hired its own 2 firefighters, due to the FLSA exemption only available to government agencies such as this district. The savings is not even...
Brandon?
Yes. Yes, sir.
We kind of have a 3-minute max. I'd let you go way past that. But I'm very interested in what you're saying. And I'm sure that there'll be some questions from the board members here for you. So what you're saying, let me get it down to 3 or 4 sentences, is that you appreciate the fact that management staff has looked at this and see what cost savings they are, but we really can't match this off against the PRO-TEC proposal because of the overtime issue that MASP wouldn't have to pay overtime under the current scenario, but we would under the PRO-TEC scenario, and that therefore it would end up being more costly. Is that in summary, what you're saying?
That is correct. Plus, you would be getting a lower level of service due to their contract that they stipulated, sir.
Okay. If you can give us like a 3 or 4 sentence blurb on why the service would be less than what we're getting.
Absolutely. That might be a little bit more than three.
Try to keep it at 3 or 4 sentences.
It's very pertinent, sir. So PRO-TEC is offering medical care at the EMR level, and it states that in the actual contract. EMR, which is Emergency Medical Responder, that is the lowest level of first responder allowed by the state of California. Currently, MASP has EMT personnel, which is a higher level of care over the EMR. And on the cover page of the proposal, it'll state that the MASP CEO wrote, the core capability required is for an NFPA/FAA Index 3848 index during normal airport hours with an EMT, this is very important, and the ability to flex to a 10E capability. That is what the FAA requires.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have any questions? We can do this. Does anybody have a quick question for Brandon? Let's keep it short. We can. Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, Bill Deaver. Did you discuss this with Karina and John?
No, I haven't been privy to any kind of discussion between them.
With that, does the board have any questions for Karina and her staff?
I think I need a little clarity on the overtime. Typically, our staff works 40 hours in general, except that when we have special events or customers request, the overtime comes into play, and that overtime is billed back to the tenant at whatever the current rate is. Am I clear on that?
Yep, that's correct, Jim.
That is correct.
Yes.
And that would apply in either case?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And somewhere I saw, I'm not sure exactly what our fire department staff does as far as other value-added things that they can do at the airport. Is there a positive or a negative at that when we, if we were to go to PRO-TEC?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Yes, sir. So when we evaluated the choices, the 4 options, and it really boiled down to current staffing or PRO-TEC, value added became an increasingly attractive addition to contracting with PRO-TEC. Currently, our current firefighters' practice is to adhere to the Firefighters' Bill of Rights, Section 3253, which basically says, and I'm paraphrasing, that we can't ask them to do anything other than firefighting. PRO-TEC value-added services include wildlife management, the stormwater prevention program, FOD checks, which our current firefighters are doing FOD checks, airfield lighting inspections, FAA airfield inspections, and a host of other items, menu items listed on PRO-TEC's website. I would like to correct one thing that Deputy Chief Weldon indicated. He said that an EMT requirement was an FAA requirement. It is not. The EMT requirement is a requirement that I placed on our firefighters. According to NFPA 405-20, personnel and requirements, EMT is required. Well, the response capability is a function of the AHJ, which is us. We set the standard, not the FAA or the NFPA. And the requirement for an EMT is still something that's in negotiation with PRO-TEC. May I address the board? This is Brandon Lowe.
Well, right now, Brandon, the board is in its own discussion amongst themselves. We've heard your comment. If I'll let you know if we want to come back to you.
Okay. I just wanted to add to those value-added things that there's a lot on that list that we already do, and that the fire department here covers.
All right, thank you. Does anybody else have questions of staff?
This is board member Allred, and I'm thinking maybe we need some more time or more information to look at it.
All right. Any other board member have any comments or questions? Do you have any follow-up comment, Karina?
So, I guess it's kind of obvious that we're kind of in this situation, and I know it's a difficult situation. I completely understand that. I think we have PRO-TEC dialed in. If any of the board members have questions for PRO-TEC about the proposal specifically, I'm sure they'd be happy to answer them.
I don't know that I have anything specifically. The thing that I'm going to be frank to all the parties here. What I don't like, and I just don't like this. I did not like it when I was the mayor in a certain city who shall remain nameless, who could never get its crud together. And this right here now, I do not like it at all when staff comes and contradicts management. I don't like that. And I'm not slamming you, Brandon, I'm not slamming you, Karina, but that's just not a good thing. If staff thinks that it's being misrepresented, the appropriate course of action, and Bill asked it, and he asked it appropriately. Have you talked to management about this? And I don't know if they knew beforehand, Karina, or not, but what we don't like to do is we don't like to have staff management board arguments in public. And I'm going to say that in public. And I'm a little displeased with that. So, because what happens is it leaves the board in a lurch. The boards don't like to be left in lurches.
Yeah, I understand that. So I can say that the statement that Brandon made today, I just got that right before the board meeting, so I didn't know that he had drafted anything. So, for what that's worth, that was a surprise to me. It's certainly not a secret that we had PRO-TEC here. This was not anything that was unknown. And I guess in response to Bill's comment, what we have from our full-time firefighters is their responses to other write-ups in the past that basically say they believe that the buck stops with them, that there is no management over them. So they don't acknowledge that John is their direct supervisor. Anything that's discussed, from top down is not treated as such. So for what that's worth, I don't really know what to do with that. I agree with you. I hear what you're saying.
I think
That would be somewhat correct, but it's incorrect.
Well, let me see. I think I can say this for the board, and any board member can interrupt me and tell me I'm full crud and to stop. But I'm going to state on behalf of the board, and I hope I'm stating this and everybody's okay, that Karina and her designate are in charge and over the fire department, period. That's just the way that it is. And that's the way it's going to be. Go ahead.
Mr. Evans, I agree with that, but there are some laws that we weren't being adhering to that we brought to the attention of the leadership, and they did not want to recognize them. But I would love to talk about this in a closed session if need be, so we can hash all this out, and you can see exactly. I don't know if you got a copy of what my statement was in regards to the actual PRO-TEC RFP request for proposal, but I would love to speak to you about that if we could. If it needs to be a closed session, I'm all for that as well, sir.
Yeah, this wouldn't be a closed session item, but I appreciate your asking. What's the pleasure of the board on this matter? I'm open to listening to what board members have to say. There's some that have more wisdom than I do.
This is board member Allred. Really, the only thing I have is, maybe sit down and looking at it with all parties concerned and getting more information. It just doesn't feel right that there's just something about it that doesn't feel right. That's my position.
All right, thank you.
We need to look into something. It needs more looking
Thanks,
into.
sir.
That's all I can say.
All right. Any comment on this, Mr. Parker?
Well, I've talked at length to our Karina about it, and I'm pretty satisfied with the proposal she's brought forward and the reasons for it, and I support her in her effort to do this.
Okay, well, thank you. Hey, Bill, do you have anything on this that you'd like to say?
Yeah, I can agree with Andrew. I'm 84 years old. I've been in government in the private sector, run businesses, and the best way to get things done is for everybody to sit down before it comes before the board, which certainly I can't see any way that it would not be possible for you to have done this in the past, Chief. But that's the way you get things resolved. That's the way I've always gotten things resolved here in Sacramento, Washington, and my own private business. I also spent 20 years in the fire service as a dispatcher, so I know a little bit about this. I'm not a firefighter, and I respect firefighters, believe me. But the way to get things done is not to come in at the last minute and surprise everybody. There's nothing in the world I could see that would have kept you from coming in and asking you to sit down with John and Karina before this, instead of coming in here and springing us on at the last minute. And I pretty much support this proposal. Is really great. And one of the things I see in this proposal that I don't think I've ever seen in a proposal before is here is a tenant or somebody that's going to provide a service on the airport, and they want to be involved in the community. That's one of the biggest problems we have around here. The airport district is involved in the community. We need other people at the airport to get involved in this community. That's all.
Thank you, Bill. And Bill just gave everybody on the board and on staff a lot of wisdom right there. Thank you. Hey, Jim, do you have any comment on this?
No, I've had quite a bit of discussion with Karina on this too. My interest is always what's best for the airport. I really think that value added that I see coming from PRO-TEC is a huge in favor of their services, and I think I'll just leave it at that.
All right, thank you. With that, the chair will entertain a motion regarding this matter.
This is Parker. I'll make that motion to accept the proposal that management has brought forward from PRO-TEC.
This is Deaver. I second.
A motion by Mr. Parker, second by Mr. Deaver. If there is no further discussion, Mr. Allred, how do you vote?
I'll vote yes.
Okay. Mr. Deaver.
Aye.
Mr. Ballantyne.
Yes.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
The chair votes yes. It's unanimous. The motion passes. We move on to item 4B, staff report.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. So the other thing that we've done, we've kind of gone through a complete review of our contracts and our departments, is we have done a complete review of our security services and posture around the airport. And we have been outsourcing to Securitas, which is a private contractor, for several years now. We've gone through our own analysis, and we have concluded that it's actually better for the district if we insource our security services for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's much more cost effective for us to insource. And number two, we have a lot more flexibility with our own staff than we do with a contractor. And I'll just give you a couple of examples. The security services, and we've outsourced for, at least 15 years that I'm aware of, but we've been outsourcing security for quite some time. and it's very limiting in the services they offer. So, for example, we had a conversation with the board quite a while ago about Unicom services, and one of the challenges we had for that Unicom service is it's impossible to get any outside contractors to provide that function for the airport. So we retain a lot of flexibility in having staff provide those services to the airport users. So our proposal is essentially that we insource security and hire the additional security personnel to perform the security functions and some additional tasks that we can also assign to them as well. And I don't necessarily need the board's approval to do that because the contract is on a month-to-month with Securitas, and so we can cancel at any time. And because there's a cost savings to the district, there's nothing the board needs to approve to change the budget. It's already budgeted dollars. But what I do need is to add, if the board approves this, is to add positions to the admin code for security officer so we can actually hire for those positions. So that's my request today, is that we add those security officer positions to the admin code.
Okay, is there any public comment? Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Deaver. You're up.
I was going to ask, but it's probably in the agenda. I may have seen it. Do we have somebody who's an overall security person in charge of security?
Yes, sir. So Chris Spandorf is our security chief. He's been with the airport for about 15 years. At first as a contractor, then as an employee. And then Chris reports up to John Himes, our director of operations.
Good, thank you. By the way, at the other time, before we had hired, we had in-house security. We had a couple of problems with that a long time ago.
Are there any other board questions for staff?
No, I'm in.
There.
Sorry, Dave.
Go ahead,
Jim.
No, go ahead, Jim.
No, I'm in support of it. I think there's value in having security staff that all of our tenants become familiar with and get to know and are involved in our operations at the airport. I hate to pick on Kern County Sheriff, but years ago there were officers that lived here and worked here, and they tended to know the community and know what's going on. I'm hearing noise from something.
That was Scott. I just muted him. Sorry. Should be okay, Jim.
Okay. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay. Thanks, Scott. Anyway, I just like the fact that our security becomes part of our airport community. Even though I spend quite a bit of time driving around the airport and I see some familiar faces in the security, it seems like I'm always seeing somebody new. And I like the fact that if we can provide more of a Unicom assistance, especially when a pilot comes in after hours and may need to push his airplane off the runway or something like that, that our staff would have the wet floor of knowing what's going on and resources available to help them. So I'm going to support this.
Thank you. Any other board questions, comments?
Just Parker, I just want to comment, I support it as well. You know, when you're flying overhead and stuff and you want to talk to Unicom, it's really nice to have somebody there to let you know wind directions and what to expect. So, and that's something we've missed for quite a while. And it's a great service for our patrons.
Very good. Anybody else? All right. With that, the chair will ask for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Mr. Deaver makes a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Allred. Mr. Allred.
Yes.
Mr. Valentine.
Yes.
Mr. Deaver.
Aye.
Mr. Parker.
Yes.
The chair votes yes. It is unanimous. Thank you very much. We will go to item 5, reports. Finance report, please.
Good afternoon. This is Carrie. These are for the financial reports for month ending August 31st. You'll see we had an increase in the bank balance of $220,000.
that was primarily contributed to the fuel sales. We sold 165 gallons in the month of August. 50% of that was to the forestry department. So they were busy. Fuels, I think, were the busiest in August. They have been for the last 12 months. On the financial report, David, you'll see we did add the depreciation in, so that will be in there on an ongoing basis. So we got that all squared away. On the over 90-day list, we are making some headway. The three that are with legal are EPS, Shinnick, and Kelly. So we are currently working through some things with them. Dragon Aviation, they are continuing to stay on their payment arrangements, so moving forward and bringing their balance down. Paxton has been in communication with us, and since our last board meeting, has paid $31,000 towards their past due balance. So they are hoping to make another payment this week as well.
I got a text message from Brian, and he said that Sherry should be sending over 2 months tomorrow, 2 months worth of rent tomorrow.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you. Any questions for Carrie on the finance report? Karina, you're up.
All right, fantastic. So on the CEO report, we've got, pretty much, I would say we're pretty much business as usual at the airport. Most of the customers are not fully staffed necessarily, but definitely the operations have been ramping up substantially. So I would say for us, for the airport team, we've been operating, with all our full-time staff for the past several months, doing everything we can to keep everyone socially distanced, wearing masks in the common areas. So we anticipate some challenges coming up with the winter months getting here, but for the most part, I think we're prepared and we're doing everything we can to accommodate our customers. I just wanted to mention, John led a successful runway safety team meeting with the FAA. This is our second annual runway safety team meeting. And it's good news in the fact that, we're getting a lot more attention from FAA with a lot of the aviation and the uptick in operations. So it was a successful meeting all in all, and, they acknowledge all of the additional support that the airport's providing for the users around the airport, such as the fire department and the control tower that are not required by FAA, but these are choices that the airport's elected to make along the way. Let's see. Just a quick note on Taxiway Charlie. So we have our construction kickoff meeting this week with the contractor, and we're expecting some construction to begin beginning of November. The current plan, and we'll have a little bit more information once we sit down with the contractor, but the current plan is to start at the east end of the taxiway and work our way west. And the easiest part of the taxiway, the most problem-free pavement is on the east side, so we're expecting that construction to go pretty quickly on that side of the taxiway. But again, our control tower is very much aware of the potential disruption for the users. Once we have the plan laid out from the contractor, we'll be able to brief all of our customers as far as what the potential disruption might be in their areas. But I don't foresee any circumstance in which folks would not be able to operate, because there's going to be a workaround along the way in every one of the 4 phases. There might be a little bit more taxiing involved. That's what I see as sort of the worst case scenario, but I do expect that the construction will go fairly quickly on most of the sections of the taxiway. And unless anybody has questions for me, that's really all I wanted to highlight on the CEO report.
I've got one question. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Karina, I think you made it clear, but I just want to be sure. So you don't anticipate any closure of 826 at all, just taxiways and maybe pilots have to taxi further, either exiting or entering the runway. Am I clear on that?
Not 100%. So there will be times that the runway itself will have to be closed, and the intersection of 1230 is another example of that. So as the taxiway goes around the corner on either end of the taxiway, we're going to be getting into or crossing into the runway areas. But we've built in some additional requests through the contractor to really minimize the disruption for those individual areas of the runway. But I think the only, Floyd, if you're on the line, please correct me, because I'm not going to get this 100% right. I think the only time that the runways will be closed is when the taxiway Charlie crosses over toward the east end of the airfield. But we have already talked to the contractor about doing that construction when there's really no use at the airport at that time. And we expect maybe 1 or 2 days for that construction to be complete. Floyd, if you're on the line, can you chime in on that question?
That is correct. It's actually at the east and west ends. There will be closures due to when the markers and the lighting are replaced, the taxiway edge lights, and then the markers on the intersection of Charlie and 26 and Charlie and 08. The contractor will actually have to work on the runway, so there will be limited closures at those times. But both of the hotspot areas, they have a 24-hour schedule built in. So once we begin working on a closed runway, we're not going to stop until we're 100% complete and able to open the runway again. So we're going to limit them as much as possible.
Okay, I appreciate that, Floyd. Thank you.
Yeah, I have a question on the EDA grant, Economic Development Administration. I see we're applying for another one. How long is it going to? How many years is it going to take to get the money from that? We're still waiting for the money on the.
That's a good question. Okay, so in summary, we've been in very close contact directly with the EDA gentleman who runs the LA office. So we've also had conversations with our congressman's office about this. And so we did have everyone involved in a phone call not too long ago. There was some confusion about what type of application we're applying for. I feel pretty confident that once our application is in, we'll get an answer from them within 30 days. And this is just based on the fact that we've been building up to getting ready to submit the final application. We've been in pretty close contact with them along the way. So we don't see any showstoppers from them coming back to say, well, you didn't do this or you didn't do that or this project doesn't qualify. But it's going to come down at this point to availability of funds. The reason that we wanted to submit the application in October is this is the start of their fiscal year. So I think our chances are much better in getting it approved now versus, waiting until, closer to the end of the year.
Okay. Any news on the railroad application?
No, and it's kind of dead, I guess, at this point. So we never really got a yes or a no. It just didn't go anywhere. But the EDA rep that we've been talking to likes this road project much better because it serves a lot more customers.
Okay. I'll talk to you about it later. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, Bill. Anybody else have any questions for Karina? Thank you for that report, Karina. Appreciate that. There are no board committees to report. Do any of the directors have any comments? Okay. Do you want to comment?
I think we're all should be familiar that Highway 14 is going to be a mess for the next year or two. And we asked for everybody to bear with us. That highway, I remember when it was built, and it was a very long time ago. And it's, especially the number 2 lanes in each direction are in terrible shape. This is going to be great. They're going to completely rebuild it, signage and everything else. But it's going to be narrowed down to 2 lanes, 1 lane each way for about a year or more. So let's all bear with it and drive safely. Okay?
Guess I'll be flying to Lancaster when I need to then.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Is there any public comment on an item not on the agenda? Okay. There seems to be no public comment. I was kind of expecting some. All right. With that, we'll move into closed session. Thank you very much, everybody.